Ichabod Crane is one of the most despised fables in The Wolf Among Us. What most people don't realise though is that he may be even worse than they think. From deliberately allowing Fabletown to decay to exploiting and spying on its residents. Today we're breaking down just how far Crane's corruption truly went. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. I could start this video by listing every major crime Crane committed, but before we do that we need to understand who he is and why that context matters. Ichabod Crane serves as Fabletown's deputy mayor for roughly half of The Wolf Among Us, but he wasn't always the one in charge. He steps into power as a temporary replacement, and from that moment on, his leadership was defined by a steady downward spiral. Many Fables despised Crane, blaming him for the ongoing suffering festering throughout Fabletown. His incompetence didn't just weaken the system, it created the vacuum that allowed the Crooked Man to rise in the first place. But the reason he's so hated isn't simply because he caused the rot, it's because he refused to confront it. While residents struggled to survive, Crane indulged himself with massages and expensive bottles of wine, all bankrolled by the corrupt and authoritarian Bluebeard. It takes a literal murder for him to even acknowledge the severity of his role, and even then, his first instinct is to lash out at Snow and Bigby. Instead of accepting responsibility, he blames them and demands they clean up the mess before Fabletown's image is damaged. The truth, however, is that his anger has nothing to do with protecting Fabletown's image. It's about protecting his own. Because this investigation doesn't just uncover corruption, it exposes Crane's depraved and disgusting double life. The murdered girl was a working girl employed at the Pudding and Pie, an adult club run by the Crooked Man. As the story unfolds, we learn that Crane wasn't just a customer. He was funding the place through embezzled city funds, acting as one of its most frequent clients. On top of that, he was financing the creation of illegal glamours, so the women he picked up could look like Snow White. That means Crane was bankrolling two Crooked Man operations at once: the exploitation of vulnerable women and the production of illegal glamours. And to make it worse, his obsession with Snow crosses fully into stalking. But here's the thing, if you've played the game, you already know all of this. So what exactly are we misunderstanding? We need to read between the lines. The magic mirror is established as a surveillance tool, a total violation of Fabletown's residents' privacy. It allows whoever controls it to watch anyone, anytime, and know exactly where they are. The game outright confirms that Crane used it to spy on Bigby, so what makes us think he stopped there? We already know he stole strands of Snow's hair, and somehow discovered the exact perfume she wore. And when you combine that with unrestricted access to a magical spying device, it becomes entirely plausible that Crane used the mirror to watch women like Snow without their knowledge. It's not a stretch to imagine him keeping personal items, possibly even breaking into homes to collect them. I mean, he would know when they're not home. We also know Crane had a stash of things he didn't want discovered. Bluebeard burns materials found at Crane's residence. That detail matters. Bluebeard is an investor. He knows Crane is incompetent, but incompetence can be managed. If it ever came out that Crane was something far worse, a stalker abusing magical surveillance, it wouldn't just damage Crane, it would threaten Bluebeard's financial interest as well. Buffkin's role matters here too. As Fabletown's librarian, he's essentially the living archive of every Fable's history. He catalogues their stories, tracks their status, and keeps their records locked away in the business office vault. Early in the game, we learn that each Fable's tale is stored there, complete with an image of how they appear. Later, it's revealed that Crane had been accessing Snow White's file, and using it to recreate her original fairy tale for his own twisted fantasies. He wasn't just obsessing over Snow in the present, he was fetishizing her past, weaponizing the very records meant to preserve Fabletown's history as material for his private delusions. So far, we've established that Ichabod Crane wasn't just a frequent client of the Crooked Man. He was a man who helped cultivate a surveillance state inside of Fabletown, stripping residents of their privacy while abusing his authority to exploit the very women he preyed on. A twisted individual in a position of power. But here's where it gets darker. What if Crane wasn't incompetent? What if he wasn't simply bad at his job? By the end of episode 3, it's clear that Bloody Mary and the Crooked Man want to get their hands on him. But why Crane? A deputy mayor can be replaced. He wasn't liked. So why risk so much to secure him? Because the answer becomes obvious when you think about it. Crane didn't just mismanage Fabletown's funds. He's confirmed to have embezzled and mishandled them. What if that decline wasn't accidental? What if he deliberately allowed Fabletown to weaken, to become desperate and demoralized? Because a fractured community is easier to control and exploit. A struggling population doesn't fight back. When he assigned Bigby to Faith's case, he probably never expected it to spiral the way it did. To him, she was just another working girl. He didn't think Bigby would actually care, or push the case beyond the bare minimum. That mistake put the Crooked Man's entire operation at risk. It also likely explains why Crane suddenly threw Lily's body down the witching well, even when Bigby clearly says he needs it as evidence.
Holly, wait, that was Crane, just Crane. He disposed of Lily's body before Bigby could do anything about it.
That doesn't feel like stupidity. It feels like someone trying to get rid of a problem before it exposes something bigger. But the moment Bigby refused to let it go, Crane stopped being an asset to the Crooked Man. He became a liability, which leads to the uncomfortable implication. From the very beginning, the Crooked Man may have been controlling Crane, whether through financial leverage, blackmail, or the threat of exposing his obsessions. Crane wasn't just corrupt. He was compromised. But don't take what I'm saying as a defense of Crane. If anything, I think the consensus has it wrong. For a long time, the wiki has claimed that Crane only worked with the Crooked Man because he was coerced. He does not turn out to be directly malicious and is certainly not sadistic. He only worked with the Crooked Man and Bloody Mary through coercion and does have a sense of morality. I just don't think that holds up with everything we've laid out. Crane clearly benefited from that relationship. The Crooked Man allowed him to indulge in his sick fantasies, and Crane funded the very operations he was actively participating in. That doesn't look like reluctant cooperation to me. It looks like a mutually beneficial arrangement. And I also believe Crane didn't just mismanage Fabletown by accident. I think he actively sabotaged it to keep that partnership alive. Regardless of how deep you think the Crane rabbit hole goes, I think everyone can agree he's one of the worst characters in the game. He isn't someone who deserves mercy or sympathy. He may not have personally killed anyone, but he absolutely preyed on vulnerable women and abused the power he was given. For that alone, Crane will always be remembered in this fandom as nothing short of a monster. This video was made possible by our amazing channel members: Gog, Wizard Elf, Eternal Canadian, Fresh Pokemon Hunter, Ross Mo, Donnie, Poop and Sock, Beatbox Blade, Alexander Brantley, Jojo My Dojo, Thy Oasis, Hitomi Bug Think 777, Chesburger, HL2GOAE, Y Spelladonna, Xavier the God, Elva, Freezing Dice, Fran Senpai Reacts, Absolute Sin, Rowan Lee, Nicholas Paradise, Celine, Toby, Tilda Anderson, Jake Brown, N/A, The Wrangler, Bastat, Zen, Ricky C, Amiko Teke, Nightfell, Callan, Ashton Springer, Volren, and Jan Hurts. This list keeps growing and it blows my mind. I cannot thank you guys enough. And always a huge shout out to anybody who watched this far. It truly means the world to me.